All right. I think this is right. Get an Instagram going. Alrighty. I think they're both good to go. Good morning, PT on Ice, a daily show, or crew. PT on Ice daily show here from the Institute of Clinical Excellence. My name is Guillermo Contreras, physical therapist here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, TA for the fitness athlete division of our of Institute of Clinical Excellence. Currently, we are in an Essentials cohort, and we have the next one coming up September 14th. So if you have been looking to sign up or participate in the Essential Foundations courses, feel free to jump in on that. Head to the website, sign up via the website for the Essential Foundations starting September 14th. I believe if you're looking at the advanced concepts, we have another one starting up end of August. So you'll have a couple opportunities here, depending on which course you're looking at or which one you're interested in jumping in on to sign up for. So today's topic, I'm talking about unilateral work for bilateral gains, right? So we're bringing Fitness Athlete Friday to Monday, just kind of bookending the whole week with some fitness athlete stuff, because that's kind of my jam, and that's kind of what I want to talk about. And what I mean by unilateral work for bilateral gains is when we look at the fitness athlete or an active population who comes into the clinic, who comes to see you, the majority of time they come in for one-sided pain. Typically we see someone with right knee pain or left shoulder pain or right hip pain. Most often, at least in my experience, we're not seeing someone with bilateral knee, bilateral shoulder. There are those instances, but majority of the time we're going to see more of the unilateral pain symptom, right? That's what they're going to come in for. And what I try and really do with a lot of the people I see is use a lot of unilateral work to improve those issues. So we're still going to load them up, we're still going to work with them, but we're going to focus on unilateral type work to help improve their squat, their deadlift, or whatever movement they might have pain with. When you look at CrossFit or weightlifting or powerlifting or any movement with a barbell, majority of the work that is done unilaterally. It's a bilateral squat, a bilateral deadlift, even bilateral pressing. So we can't forget overhead pressing is 2 arms with a bench press, 2 arms with an overhead press, split jerk, snatching, right? Those are both limbs moving at the same time, ideally somewhat symmetrically. So when someone comes in with right or left shoulder pain, the most important thing, and I think this cannot be overlooked more than anything else, is that we should never assume that their pain is coming from a weak shoulder or a immobile shoulder. The reason they have pain is because the shoulder is weaker, and just assume it. And so before we do anything else, we always want to assess what's going on, which I think that I don't even need to say that in this group. But again, assess, don't guess. Don't assume that, oh, their left shoulder is probably weaker, let's get it stronger, and that's going to help with their pain. I think Jeff Moore says it, and I'm not sure if I'm going to butcher this quote or not, but like, you can't get good results from bad data. You need to know what's going on. You need to know how much weaker, how much more immobile or less flexible that shoulder is before you start treating it and kind of just giving a random home exercise program that includes like band pull-aparts and rotator cuff work. A lot of times when I work with athletes, what I tend to see is there's no real pattern. Some individuals will have left shoulder pain, and it turns out their left shoulder is stronger than their right shoulder. And what's going on is maybe that left shoulder is just carrying the brunt of the work whenever they're doing a lot of volume overhead. So you have a workout that has 100 overhead presses, whether it be push jerks or anything like that, and that right shoulder starts to fatigue out, and that left shoulder continues to carry the load for that movement and that workout. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that we're ensuring that we're kind of finding out what's going on, whether that be doing a dumbbell single arm press to assess what does the right shoulder versus the left shoulder, which one is stronger, which one is weaker, which one maybe has a little bit more ability to continue loading over time, and which one does not. We also want to assess range of motion, flexibility, mobility, and especially in the fitness athlete population, we need to go into those positions that we know they're going to get into. Are you taking them through the movement? Are you actually having putting a barbell in their arms, seeing what it looks like when they press overhead? Is there an issue here where they lean back a little bit and not getting that full shoulder flexion range of motion? If you do some abduction just to kind of see what that looks like, are they, whatever what this is, like 4 inches away from the ear on one arm, and they can get right to the other side of their ear with the other? Are you checking those things out to ensure that, okay, really stiff shoulder, really more flexible shoulder? Is it really stiff? Can I passively move it all the way through? Okay, this is more of a mobility and shoulder stability issue. We need to start strengthening and working on getting them comfortable with that overhead press and locking out in that position to ensure that they're able to get that full range of motion and get a really strong contraction of those tissues in an overhead position. If we're looking at the lower body, that's where we can get a little bit more, I think, creative in my mind. Obviously, you want to load them up and get them back squatting, deadlifting, whatever the movement is that bothers them. But then what does it look like when they're doing a single leg movement? My go-to is a box step up, a forward box step up with a barbell in the back rack, front rack, 2 dumbbells, 2 kettlebells, whatever you want to load them up with. But get that box height high enough where it's pretty close to what their hip and knee angle would be for a back squat. Perform the movement and then see what it looks like for them. Are they able to stand up fully with that leg by itself, or do they have to slam that opposite leg down and push up with the other leg to help themselves get to the top position? If they can do it without the help of the other leg, that means they have a relatively strong leg. So now you're using a nice moderately heavy load, something that challenges them. Maybe you test them out, see what they do. Maybe they do 7 reps on their right leg before they fatigue. Then when you test out the left leg, they only do 3 reps, and it's a struggle, right? So now we're seeing, okay, that left side is in some way weaker. Maybe it's a little more unstable. They have a little bit more difficulty with that movement. And then when you have them do a back squat, you notice, man, that left knee, they have a lot of issues tracking that over the big toe. They're really caving in, they're diving in, they're struggling with that. So what we do is we prescribe what we find, right? You always treat what you find. So if we see that the left side is weaker than the right, maybe we dial back on a lot of back squatting, especially heavy back squatting for a little bit. And we make their home program, hey, whenever back squat is programmed, I want you to focus on some single leg modification, box step up, rear foot elevated split squats, walking lunges, reverse lunges, elevated deficit lunges, right? There's a lot of different movements you can use to try and prescribe single leg exercises to try and improve that kind of deficiency if you see one side versus the other. Same with overhead pressing. If they struggle with a barbell press and it's painful, first thing we have to do is like, okay, our first thought can't be like, all right, get out of the gym. You're not going to be working out for a few weeks, especially if they can tolerate getting into the position. But let's see, can you do a dumbbell press? Can we modify your movement? Can you do a single 2 dumbbells press? Okay, does that bother your shoulder as much? No, that feels fine. Awesome. You're going to do dumbbell pressing until we can kind of get this cooled down a little bit. Once it starts feeling better, we can start incorporating some barbell pressing again. And maybe we're going to throw in some accessory work where I want you working that single arm press. One thing I do with a lot of clients of mine who I do programming for remotely is I will do a single arm press, but I'll have them do 1 additional set on their weaker shoulder in order to try to like bridge the gap and kind of fix the area where it's a little bit weaker than the other side. So maybe doing 3 sets of 8 single arm dumbbell press with a 1-second pause overhead and a controlled slow eccentric, and then I'll have them do a 4th set just on the left shoulder to kind of try and get that one a little bit stronger. And once things start to even out, we just kind of go back to 3 sets of 8 each shoulder, 3 sets of 10, 15, whatever we're working for as far as they need at a relatively good load. And again, we want to assess all those things too to find out what a good working load is and then build up from there. And same thing with your mobility stability work as well. So if someone has a lot of flexibility issues or mobility issues, how can you incorporate that into their warm-up in the clinic when they see you, or can you incorporate it into their home program? Can you have them do 3 sets of, or you can call them rounds, of like 30-second thoracic foam roll just to open up the thoracic spine, some 4-point thoracic rotations to kind of, again, open up some thoracic mobility, then maybe some eccentric lowering with a PVC pipe and a weight change plate to kind of open up the soft tissue. Then from there, finish it off with some prone lift-offs, right? Example right there of something that can work to help mobility as far as a warm-up, get their body moving a little bit, get them kind of going. You can even start off with like 30 to 60 seconds on an Airdyne bike or a rower or just anything to get their blood flowing, get them warmed up, and then do those soft tissue and strengthening kind of exercises to help improve that mobility. And then from there, work into some accessory strengthening work, and then finish it off with a Metcon that incorporates that new range of motion that works on those mechanics and those principles. And again, focuses a little bit more on unilateral work. So you can even have them do like a single arm dumbbell press one side, single arm dumbbell press the other side. And again, just really challenge those tissues there. So that's the fitness athlete population, right? That's my jam. That's what I'm about. But I also work in an outpatient clinic, and I use a lot of these principles along with the general population as well. So anybody from your 35-year-old mom to your 55, 60-year-old weekend warrior who wants to continue to stay fit and be active and everything like that. Even kind of the older adult who just wants to continue living an independent lifestyle on their own. How can we do the same thing? Easily, right? You still want to check, okay, what does your shoulder strength looks like? When does it hurt you? What is, oh, when you reach overhead? Okay, let's find out how much weaker the shoulder is, how much more flexible or immobile this one is versus the other one. And then you start, again, you treat what you find. If you have a lot of difficulty with that single arm overhead reach on the right arm, but not so much the left arm, and you can get a little bit, maybe 30 more degrees on the left, how can we get that right shoulder to move a little bit more? Can I incorporate it into your home program, into kind of a quick 3 or 4 exercise thing that you just kind of knock out within a couple minutes, so you're not spending a ton of time on it, but you're getting some mobility in there. And then we incorporate some single arm work as well. So single arm presses, single arm holds, single arm carries, all those things are going to be really beneficial. And especially if you have someone who's a little more deconditioned, who's not used to the heavier loads, you can use things in their home to help improve that strength and just give them things to do at home as far as their home exercise program goes. For single leg work, I would argue that the amount of time that I see people spend on an Eric's pad doing a lot of like balance activities, which have their place, don't get me wrong, I'm all for using those things and not or, right? So use that stuff. But the number of people that I don't see using a single leg strengthening exercise to implement some sort of balance training or neural rehab or whatever you want to call it is not enough, right? I feel like when you do a single leg step up, that's a large stabilization component for as soon as you step up, that glute has to fire. And I believe Alex Germano talked about glute bridges, and then she shared an article about exercises, or someone shared an article about exercises for the glutes, and the lunge and the step up, those exercises initiate glute max activation more than many other ones. So can we use that step up to find out as soon as they step up onto even a 4-inch box, you see that big hip drop, they have difficulty with that. And if you can use that exercise, a step up, even if they just have a stair at home, and I want them to really limit what they use so they can use both hands at first, then they just use the contralateral upper extremity to kind of help with support, then the unilateral one, and then after they get that down, it's no upper extremity, then what I want to do is I want to take some weight and I want to load that unilateral side and then make it even harder by loading the contralateral side, right? And it's going to challenge that left hip if the weight's in my right arm way more. These are ways that we can progress with these patients where not only are we building strength and functional capacity for doing stairs, walking, and other things like that, but we are loading them up, we are getting them stronger in those muscles. And if those muscles are stronger, the hips are more stable, the hips are more able to tolerate load, they can do more stairs, they can do more standing, they can transfer on and off the floor, right? Because we need to get into that lunge position when we transfer on and off the floor. So other things that we can work on, right? We need to incorporate unilateral work, not just bilateral work. We need to assess what their single leg and single arm strength looks like compared to the other, especially if we're going to start loading up these patients and in everything bilateral, right? So if we're going to start loading them up with overhead pressing, stuff like that, we should be doing single arm work as well, because that's going to challenge the midline and some other things as well. So hopefully that wasn't too scatterbrained, but kind of get an idea. Questions, feel free to throw them up on here. Happy to answer them any way I can. But just want to throw that out there as something that I think is really important. It's something that I do with a lot of the clients and patients that I work with, using unilateral movements, unilateral exercises, and always assessing unilateral or side-to-side strength differences and mobility differences to ensure that people are getting stronger and getting better, not just with the movements that you see in the gym, but also to make sure that they're limiting any type of risk to injury moving forward by ensuring that we have good side-to-side strength, things like that. I think that's it. I'm really bad at closing these things off, but hope you guys have an awesome Monday. Thanks for tuning in. This is my first live. I usually record these, but I have a patient at 8 a.m., 9 Central, so I can't be live at the new time. So hopefully you guys don't mind the sudden change in what we promised was a new 9 a.m. always thing. But have a wonderful Monday, guys. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you guys tomorrow.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the PT on Ice Daily Show. If you enjoyed this content, head on over to iTunes and leave us a review. And be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram at the Institute of Clinical Excellence. If you're interested in getting plugged into more ICE content on a weekly basis while earning CEUs from home, check out our virtual ICE online mentorship program at ptonice.com. While you're there, sign up for our Hump Day Hustling newsletter for a free email every Wednesday morning with our top 5 research articles and social media posts that we think are worth reading. Head over to ptonice.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to sign up.